When ruin becomes revelation. What you fear breaking might be what needs to fall apart. There's a hidden beauty in chaos. A sacred clarity beneath the collapse. And in the ruins of everything you once called solid, lies the place where you finally begin to rebuild. Falling apart is not failure. It's the unmaking of what wasn't real. The dissolution of illusions, masks, expectations. So the core of who you really are can emerge. Every ancient tradition whispers this truth. When the ego fractures, the soul awakens. When the structure breaks, the truth reveals itself. When the mask shatters, your true face appears. In this video, we dive into the sacred art of unraveling. We explore philosophers, from Nietzsche's abyss to Rumi's wounds, who saw collapse as altar. The brutal grace hidden within breakdowns, grief, failure, endings. Why depth often grows from rupture, not from comfort. How to navigate your fragmentation with wisdom, not fear. And how, in falling apart, you might assemble the most authentic version of yourself. This is for the sacredly broken, the quietly collapsing, the souls who didn't break from weakness, but broke awake. Because sometimes, the only path forward is to watch it all dissolve. Welcome to the beauty of falling apart. Let's walk through the ruins together. We are not what we seem to be, not to others, and often not even to ourselves. Carl Jung. We spend most of our lives building something we think will keep us safe. An identity. A persona. A reputation. We craft a version of ourselves that looks whole, while silently hoping no one notices the cracks beneath. This is the great lie we inherit. That we must be strong, always put together. Always productive, always smiling, even when we're breaking inside. So we wrap ourselves in armor. Status, success, knowledge, relationships, control. And yet, what we protect eventually imprisons us. Because the more you curate your identity, the more fragile it becomes. You become a porcelain version of yourself. Untouched by life, but also untouched by truth. The problem is not that we fall apart. The problem is that we think we shouldn't. But let's ask, where did we learn that being whole meant being unbroken? That being healed meant never feeling pain again? That being enough meant never failing? Philosophers like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and Camus knew. This life is absurd. It's messy. It is not made to be navigated flawlessly. It is made to be lived through, broken open, and digested by the soul. The illusion we're sold, the polished, perfect life, is a modern plague. We are told to manifest abundance while burying our grief. To optimize productivity while ignoring our emptiness. To pretend that trauma can be hacked by morning routines and affirmations. But beneath all this, our soul is whispering. You're exhausted because you're not allowed to be real. You are not tired from doing too much. You are tired from hiding too long. The real suffering isn't in falling apart. It's in pretending you're fine when you're not. This is where the rupture begins. And that rupture, as terrifying as it feels, is sacred. Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. T.S. Eliot. When the mask finally breaks, when the illusion collapses, something unexpected happens. Not death. Not madness. But silence. A silence so deep, it terrifies you. Because for the first time, there's no script. No role to play. No audience to perform for. Just you. Stripped. Raw. Uncomfortable. Real. This is the space philosophers and mystics call the abyss. The dark night of the soul. The moment when the ego dies, and the soul begins to speak. But it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in ache. In stillness. In the sense that everything you once relied on, no longer works. This is where falling apart becomes a teacher. Because now, without the armor of who you were pretending to be, you get to ask questions most people never dare to confront. Who am I without achievement? Who am I when I'm not strong? Who am I when no one needs me? Who am I when I'm not useful? And beneath all those layers, you discover something that was never broken. Not your job. Not your relationship. Not even your identity. What was cracking? Was the illusion? What was shattering? Was everything false? You begin to see. Pain does not mean you're broken. It means you're becoming. The death of the false self. We are not what happened to us, we are what we choose to become. Carl Jung. When the cracks start to show, most people run. They hide in noise. In habits. In distraction. They reach for control like a drowning man gasping for air. But what if the crack is the way? What if everything that's crumbling isn't your life, but your illusion of life? Because what we call falling apart is often just the death of the false self. The one built on approval, on performance, on survival. That self was never meant to last forever. It was a mask, necessary once, but now, a prison. And like a snake shedding its skin, like a phoenix burning in its own ashes, you have to let it die. The problem? We confuse discomfort with danger. We treat silence like emptiness. We see grief as weakness. But grief is honesty. It means something mattered. It means a chapter is closing. It means a part of you is evolving. What breaks you, frees you. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi. There's a strange paradox at the heart of healing. You can't fix yourself by force. You can't shame yourself into wholeness. You can't outrun the parts of you that hurt. The only way out is in. When you sit with the ache, without trying to fix it, you begin to hear its message. Because anxiety isn't just fear. It's the body screaming. Something here needs your attention. Depression isn't just sadness. It's exhaustion from carrying a life that doesn't fit anymore. And numbness? It's the soul's last defense. When it can't scream loud enough to be heard. In our culture, we're told to medicate the pain. To push through. To stay positive. But maybe what you need isn't positivity. Maybe what you need is truth. Even if it breaks you. Especially if it breaks you. Because what breaks you, frees you. The abyss is a mirror. You're not falling apart. You're falling through. Through every layer of identity you built to survive. Through every belief that said you had to be perfect. Through every rule you followed just to feel loved. And on the other side of that descent, there's something terrifying and beautiful. Stillness. Not the stillness of giving up. But the stillness of starting over. Not the silence of defeat. But the silence before rebirth. Here, in the abyss, you don't find answers. You find presence. You start to notice things. The way the light hits your hands. The texture of your breath. The small, quiet voice that says, "You're still here." That voice isn't yelling. It doesn't need to. Because for the first time, you're listening. Integration begins in the dark. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. True transformation doesn't look like light pouring in from the heavens. It looks like silence. It looks like staying. It looks like finally facing what you've been avoiding your whole life, without running, fixing, or numbing. Healing is not heroic in the beginning. It's humbling. It's crying on the kitchen floor. It's admitting, "I don't know who I am anymore." It's peeling away every layer you built to be safe and realizing that wholeness was never about perfection, it was about integration. Integration means making peace with your shadow. The parts of you that are jealous, selfish, insecure, needy. Not to indulge them, but to stop exiling them. Because when you exile parts of yourself, they don't die. They become puppeteers in the dark, pulling your strings. But when you welcome them into the light, you finally take your power back. Wholeness is not what you think. You thought wholeness was becoming someone better, stronger, smarter, more capable. But wholeness is remembering that you were never broken. That your pain wasn't a punishment, but a signal. That your grief was sacred. Your fear was protective. Your shame was inherited, not earned. Wholeness is when you stop trying to be someone and allow yourself to be everything you already are. Because here's the secret most never learn. You don't become yourself by adding more. You become yourself by uncovering what was always there. By listening. By softening. By being radically honest, even when it hurts. especially when it hurts. The return of the lost self. There comes a moment, after the collapse, when you start to see glimmers of something ancient, something sacred. It's not the version of you that smiled through the pain. It's not the version that got everything right. It's the one that was buried under roles and rules and requirements. The one who laughed loudly before they were told to be quiet. The one who cried openly before they were taught to hide it. The one who knew joy without explanation. That self never left. It just got covered. And now, piece by piece, you're calling it back. Not to become who you once were, but to finally become who you always were. Rebuilding on honest ground. The phoenix must burn to emerge. Janet Fitch. Now you begin again. But not from scratch. From truth. You build slowly, deliberately, without pretending. You learn to say, I don't know. That hurt me. I need help. I forgive you. I forgive me. This is who I am, today. You no longer measure your worth by how well you perform. You measure it by how well you show up, for yourself. Some days, that will mean showing up in pain. Other days, in stillness. But every day, in truth. Because now you understand. You weren't put on this earth to be admired. You were put here to be whole. And that begins the moment you stop pretending to be anything else. The myth of having it all together. To live is to be cracked open. Green Brown. You were taught that life is about becoming stronger, smarter, better, unbreakable. But the deeper truth is this. You're not here to become untouchable. You're here to become real. And real things break. Real hearts ache. Real people cry. And real lives collapse. Not because you've failed, but because you've finally stopped pretending. In a world obsessed with control, your unraveling is an act of rebellion. In a world obsessed with perfection, your brokenness becomes sacred. A language of the soul. Blowing wind face when you let go of the mask. We are not what happened to us, we are what we choose to become. Carl Jung. You no longer need to impress. No longer need to perform. You stop hiding your cracks. Because you've learned it. The cracks are where the light gets in. And also where the truth gets out. The masks fall. The defenses crumble. And all that remains is the bare, beating honesty of your existence. You are no longer afraid to be seen. You're not perfect. You're not invincible. You are something far more powerful. You are human. From wound to gift. Your pain has not been wasted. It has been alchemized. Each wound has turned into wisdom. Each scar into strength. Not because you moved on, but because you moved through. Now, when others break, you don't look away. You recognize the tremble, the silence, the shame. You become what you never had. A witness. A safe space. A mirror. This is how pain becomes purpose. Not in spite of your collapse, but because of it. You don't rescue people from their pain. You show them how to survive it. The sacred art of being undone. You only truly begin to live when you have nothing left to prove. Alan Watts. You no longer fear falling apart. Because you've done it. And you're still here. You carry your fragility like armor. Your tears like fire. Your sorrow like scripture. You no longer chase happiness like a possession. Instead, you let it arrive, quietly. As a byproduct of presence. You are no longer addicted to the illusion of progress. You've made peace with the unknown. You've surrendered to the not knowing. You've come home to the mystery. This is not resignation. This is awakening. The quiet power of the present. There is no more finish line. No more fantasy of arrival. You stop asking, what's next? You start asking, what's here? And what's here is breath. Stillness. Awareness. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are finally present for it. The joy. The grief. The longing. The becoming. This is the freedom of falling apart. You lose your old identity, but you gain your life. A soul reborn. You are not who you were, but not because you've become someone else. Because you've become more yourself. Layer by layer, you've stripped away the noise. The masks. The roles. Now what remains is sacred. The child who dreamed. The adult who failed. The soul that endured. And through it all, you became what no one told you was possible. A human being at peace with their becoming. So if you've fallen apart, this is your permission. Don't rush to rebuild. Don't panic. Don't perform. Stay in the ashes for a while. Let them teach you. Let them soften you. Let yourself be undone. Because that's where your new life begins. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Anais Nin.